right now. Rob Maaddi is here, and he is brought to you by Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. We are loving Atlantic City. We are all about Atlantic City, and Rob is with me right now as we take a look at Eagles and 49ers. And, Rob, we'll start with the question we've been asking today, all right? What did you see in week one that you're surprised about but is sustainable for this Eagles team? What is sustainable that they did that they can continue to do?
I think the dominance of that offensive line is something that is sustainable, Mike, because this is an offensive line unit that's had a lot of success in years past. And the key isn't whether or not they can do it, it's whether or not they can stay healthy. So if Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey stay healthy, Jordan Mailata continues to develop, Isaac Seumalo had a pretty good game. If he continues to play that way, I think that's sustainable. And I think the Eagles have a top three, if not the best offensive line in the NFL. And that certainly, to me, it wasn't much of a surprise. It was surprise how well they were able to do it and dominate in week one. I thought it would take them a little bit more time to get to round into that form, especially after they didn't play together that much in the preseason, other than in the two practices against the Jets and the Patriots. So I think that's certainly something that we can look at, Mike, and say is sustainable. That's something that the Eagles can continue to build upon. And if that offensive line dominates week in and week out the way they did against Atlanta, that's going to open up the passing game for Jalen Hurts. That's certainly going to open up the run game for Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, and Boston Scott if he can get some carries at some point. And I think that's going to go a long way towards the Eagles having potentially a winning record. If this offensive line is that good every week, they may have a winning record. And I had them at 7 wins coming in, but I don't mind being wrong.
Yeah, man, I know a lot of people got on me because I said I if the line was healthy, I could see 10. Their schedule at the back end of the year is very favorable. If they can steal one in this week here is interesting. They played out in San Francisco last year. They got a win, banged up San Francisco team. Take a look at that injury report this week, Rob. San Francisco's pretty beat up again all of a sudden. When I talked to you Tuesday, it didn't look like this. Yeah,
and their secondary's beat up for sure, and that's something that bodes well for Jalen Hurts in the passing game and the young receivers. And I know that Nick Sirianni's going to want to attack those corners. Jason Mosley's coming back yet. And then you signed Josh Norman last week, Kirkpatrick this week. So they got guys who are still getting used to and getting accustomed to the system. So you look at that secondary, and that's something that the Eagles certainly should attack, because up front at the defensive line, as good as the Eagles are on the O-line, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle in the trenches because they have Nick Bosa, they got Eric Armstead, they got D Ford. They have some talented pass rushers. So it's going to be challenging for that offensive line. But if you can give Jalen Hurts some time and attack that secondary, it's not inexperienced, but it's banged up, beat up, and that's going to be something that I think is very advantageous for the Eagles on Sunday.
Yeah, Dre Greenlaw, their linebacker, he is done. Kinlaw, he's banged up. Mosley, Armstead, a lot of those guys. I mean, there's a lot of big names on the 49ers side of things that are hurt. Now, one big thing is, and we had Ryan Paganetti on earlier, who was an Eagles coach the last couple of years, and he was on the staff last year, and a linebacker guy said, well, whatever you did against Kittle didn't work last year, and he kind of laughed like, yeah, we didn't really have the personnel. Not that they have
– He didn't throw Nate Gary under the bus, did he?
Not by name, but they were a little. He did identify that, hey, look, sometimes you just don't have the pieces that you really want to have there. It was a very interesting conversation about like how you game plan differently because of injury and stuff like that. But he did give a lot of praise to Alex Singleton. He said that was a guy who they really, really liked and just kept getting better and better. And I wonder, and not that he said Singleton's going to take Kittle out of the game, but you would imagine 15 for 15 is going to be a little bit different this time around.
15 for 15, 183 yards, and a touchdown is going to be tough. But the bright side is the Eagles won that game. So George Kittle can get his yards, get his numbers, and the Eagles can still win a football game. If they take away Deebo Samuel, they take away Brandon Ayuk, they take away the run game, if they can contain those guys, you can still win and have George Kittle catch 10 balls, 12 balls for 110 yards. It's like all those times they beat Atlanta and Julio Jones would go off for 100 yards, but who cares? They still won the game. I don't know that I don't think this personnel, whether it's Nate Gary, whether it's Alex Singleton, whether it's Eric Wilson now, whoever it is, George Kittle's a dominant tight end, if not the best. He's the second best behind Travis Kelce in the NFL. He's going to do his damage, right? So it's hard to take him out of the game. You just want to be able to contain the damage that he does and take the other components, the other parts of that offense and limit them and shut them down. And if they do that, then that can certainly help them win a football game.
So, Rob, if you're Nick Sirianni this week, who's the guy on offense that you think has the most favorable matchup?
Man, I got to look at however the Niners are going to line up that secondary, those corners. Devontae Smith, to me, man, I love this kid. I love everything about him. I don't know if you heard him today, Mike, talking about what have you experienced out in Philly? And he's like, nothing. I just sit at home. Like, I love that mindset. I'm not saying sit at home and do nothing all day long, but like he's like, I'm in practice, I'm in the playbook, and that's it. He's not allowing himself to be distracted by anything else. So you saw him in week 1, 6 for 71 with that touchdown, and I think you could feature him a little bit more, especially against a banged-up secondary. And along with Devontae, Jalen Reagor, I love what he did last week, and that's going to be another one that I think week in and week out, you got Reagor, you got Devontae, and let's not forget about the tight ends, especially when the Niners are banged up at linebacker too. You got Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. That's a pretty darn good combo, man.
Now, Rob, we talked in the offseason about Ertz, and I think you've been on the record saying you're pretty surprised that this has been fixed. So we now found out that Jason Kelce is also surprised that Zach Ertz is back. We now found out why Kelce's hair is blonde, because he lost a bet. Yeah. He told Zach Ertz, I didn't think you would be here, and he says, I bet you I will. So I wonder when that bet was made.
It's crazy, right? That really is funny to me that it was that way, not the other way around. It's funny that Zach said, I'll be here, and Kelce said, no, you're not going to be here. Like, I didn't know teammates talk to each other like, oh, you're not going to be here, dude. If you remember back to after the last game of the season, right? It was Carson, it was Zach, and it was Kelce. It was Jason Kelce. It was the three of those guys who were out there on the field for like an hour or two after the game, and Carson's gone, and I guess Jason thought that Zach was going to follow him out the door, and we all did. But ain't that cool, man? I think if the Eagles start to win here, start developing, if they go on some sort of like 3-1 start, 4-2, they got a tough schedule too. You're going to see a lot more blondes in that locker room, and that might filter to the fan base. Mike, may you somehow lose a bet to do your hair blonde? Is there anything that you can do?
No, I was a towhead when I was a kid, man. My hair was jet white, man, and it went away, and it never went back. I'm not going back to blonde. You got a nice head of hair, though, for the blonde look. Hey, what are you down in Florida now, man? Everybody's got blonde hair.
My wife will kill me, but if I told her I lost a bet, I mean, hey, you got to be a man of your word. So.
Oh, man. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press covers the NFL, the Eagles. Looking at the Eagles and the Niners. We'll get to a couple thoughts on the NFL in just a second. Last one on the Eagles, because, one thing, Mailata, everybody's loving this guy. He's got a personality. He's drinking beers with the people in the crowd, him and Kelce. So he's obviously endearing himself. But he's going against Nick Bosa. So this is, hey, man, this matchup might be the one that really dictates how they can run their offense.
It's going to be a really tough test for him, and I'm very excited to see how he holds up against Nick Bosa. Do they give him help, Mike, right? I mean, Nick Bosa is a terrific end who last year he was injured, but the year before he had 9 sacks. So is it going to be Jordan Mailata out on that island one-on-one with Nick Bosa? Do they chip? Do they give him help? What do they do there? And how does he match up, man? I'm willing to bet on this guy. Everything that he's done since he's been here, since he's worked his way into the starting lineup, since he's taken control of that job, since he's earned himself that paycheck that I thought was a little too soon. But, hey, that's fine. It's their money. Let them spend it however they want. I love his attitude. I love his willingness to get better. And he's humble. And my man's a beast. I always wanted to see him catch a football and run with it.
I'm telling you, dude.
That's still that tackle eligible still. It's got to be in the playbook.
Got to. Michael Buffer tweeted it out. Did you see this? Buffer the other day tweeted it out. He said, the Eagles have to use this guy like fridge. You know, he tweets out the highlights of him in rugby. I actually, Rob, I get it. I liken him to Joel Embiid, a guy with just no experience but just the raw skill. And once you got your hands on him, his athletic ability just took over. But I almost would rather have seen him play defensive tackle. Like, who the hell is blocking a 6'8", 285-pounder with that kind of speed and explosion? He would push the center and guard into the backfield every play.
Man, you're on to something, Mike. And I don't know why they went with him in offensive line and tackle and everything else he does up there, because he's very versatile. He can play 4 positions up front. But you're right. If you put him, or you spring him, you put him out on the edge rusher. You put him as that speed that he has, that size, that speed as an edge rusher. Like, I could see him tossing a tackle out of the way, going after the quarterback, flipping him. He could do. He could probably step right in right now, and play that position and play it decently.
His hands. There was a video of him last year in a game where he went back. He's blocking his guy one-on-one, and he took his right arm and just pushed the guy and put him on the ground. I mean, he took 2 guys out at one time. He's that big. I mean, I think the Eagles just ass backwards themselves into a freakish athlete. But it'll be fun to watch that Bosa and Mailata matchup. That being said, tonight it's NFC East, Giants and Washington football team. You got a backup quarterback for Washington. You've got a great defensive front for Washington. You've got a horrible offensive line for the Giants. You've got some injury issues over there. So, I don't know. A lot of people think the loser of this game will be 0-2 and could be in some big trouble. This division should keep the 0-2 team in it. But give us a little quick thought on tonight.
Man, a lot of criticism for Daniel Jones, and deservedly so, and that Giants offense, lack of creativity. What are they doing? I just have this sneaky suspicion that Daniel Jones is going to have a big game tonight against Washington, which would shock, I think, a lot of people. But you got a Washington team with strong up front, a weak, like everything is set up for failure for the Giants. A strong defensive line. They're weak on their offensive line. They're iffy with a lot of injuries. And DJ, Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes has been is under so much heat and so much criticism. I kind of have this feeling that he's going to come out and not necessarily have a game like he did against the Eagles where he ran 80 yards and stumbled and fell at the 10 or whatever, fell on that line. But I'm leaning towards the Giants in this one. And I know a lot of teams, when they get their backup quarterback in the first game, especially on short, like it's a short week, Taylor Heineke's got to step in there and he's going to lead the Washington football team. They rally around their backup. They may have a lot of success in that first game, and then they come back to earth it's week 2 with the backup quarterback. But I like the way the Giants were playing in the second half last year, and they were an Eagles tank away from winning the division at 6-10. But after that 1-7 start, they go 5-3 in the second half, and I thought they were going to build on that, and I thought they were going to have some momentum coming into this year and be a decent team, somewhere around 7, 8, 9 wins, probably closer to 7 or 8 than 9. And I'm just not ready to say that they're going to be the dreck of the NFC East.
All right, that's tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. Rob Maaddi, your pick for Eagles 49ers is?
Well, I was wrong last week. I took Atlanta 26-23, and I'm going to continue in that vein, hoping that I'm wrong again. And I'm going to take the 49ers to beat the Eagles. I like weird numbers, so I'm going to go 22-20. So Eagles get the cover, but they lose the football game.
Okay, Rob Maaddi. Don't forget, Faith on the Field airs Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and Sunday morning at 6:30 a.m. here on 97.3 ESPN. Rodney McLeod this week, correct?
Yes, sir. Rodney McLeod. A really cool conversation with Rod. Talks about his injury, talks about glowing praise for Nick, for Gannon, for Jalen Hurts, and much more. So stay tuned for that one.
All right, great stuff as always. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press right here on the Sports Bash. And make sure you listen, 9 o'clock Saturday morning, Faith on the Field. Rodney McLeod is Rob's guest. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, man. Rob Maaddi here on the Sports Bash is brought to you by Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash.